Look at this piece of salmon.
Our agency grew by
Beautiful,
38%,
isn't it?
over the past 4
That
years.
vibrant pink-orange color
these
that makes you
reductions
think
just
of
bring it
pristine
down to
Alaskan
pre-COVID
waters
levels.
of a fish leaping
And
upstream
the
of
agency,
nature's perfect protein.
grew
Now,
over
let
the
me tell you the
last
truth.
80
that the food
years,
industry
or 70
and our
years,
captured
and
regulatory
it grew in a way that's
agencies
very
have
unwieldy.
hidden from you for decades.
We have 100 communication
That color is a
departments.
lie.
We
It's
have
a dye.
We have 40
The salmon you're buying at your
40
supermarket,
IT departments.
the salmon you're feeding
We
to
have
your
9
children
HR
started out
departments,
gray.
and many of them have
Not
computer
pink,
systems that can't
not
talk to
orange,
each other, that are
gray.
incompatible,
Or that are
like a
faxing
piece
to
of
each other,
concrete.
right?
And we
And
also
somebody in a
had
corporate office decided
our
what
agency
shade of
grew by
fake pink to paint it
38%
before selling
over
it
the
to
past
you.
4 years.
When I took this office
So these
as Secretary of
reductions
Health
just
and Human
bring it down to
Services,
pre-COVID
I
levels.
promised the American people one thing
And
above all else.
the
I would tell
agency,
you the truth.
grew over
I would
the
expose
last
the corporate
80 years,
capture that
or
has
70
turned
years,
our
and
regulatory
it grew in a way
agencies
that's very
into marketing
unwieldy.
departments for the very
We have 100
industries they're supposed to
communication
regulate.
departments.
And
We
today,
have,
I
we have
need you to
40
understand what is
procurement
actually
departments,
happening with
40
the salmon in
departments.
your refrigerator.
We
We are
have
in the
9
middle of the
HR
worst
departments,
chronic
and
disease
many of them have
epidemic in
computer
human
systems
history.
that can't talk to each
77%
other.
of
Or
young
that are
Americans are
faxing
too
to
sick
each
to
other,
qualify
right?
for military
And we
service.
also had
1 in 3 children
our
is
agency
obese
grew by
or overweight.
38% over the
Autoimmune
past 4
diseases
years.
have exploded by 400%
So these
since
reductions
the
just bring it
1980s.
down to pre-COVID levels.
And nobody in Washington wants to
And
connect the dots
the
between what we're
agency,
eating and why we're
grew
dying.
over
The
the
science
last
tells us
80
that what we
years,
put
or
in
70
our
years,
bodies
and
matters.
it
Every
grew in a
single
way that's
bite
very
is either
unwieldy.
fighting disease or
We have
feeding.
100 communication
Right now,
departments. We have,
America's being
we
fed a
have
diet
40
of science
procurement departments.
experiments,
We have 40 IT
bioaccumulative
departments.
toxins,
We have
and
9
industrial
HR
waste
departments,
products.
and many of
marketed
them
as
have
food.
computer systems.
Salmon
that can't
should be
talk to
one of the
each other,
healthiest
that are
foods.
Or that are
incompatible.
faxing to each
Wild
other, right?
salmon is
And
loaded
we
with
also
omega-3
had
fatty acids.
our
astaxanthin,
agency grew by
vitamin D,
38%
selenium.
over the past 4 years.
It's what our ancestors
These
ate.
reductions
It's
just
what
bring it
kept
down to
traditional
pre-COVID
populations
levels.
healthy for thousands of years.
And the
What's
agency,
happening now is a form of mass
grew
poisoning
over the
disguised
last
as nutrition.
80 years, or
Let me
70
explain
years,
exactly
and
how this
it
works.
grew in a way that's very unwieldy.
90% of the salmon
We have
consumed
100
in America
communication
is farmed.
departments. We have
Not caught in the
we have
wild,
40
farmed.
procurement departments. We have
Raised
40
in
IT
overcrowded
departments.
underwater feedlots.
We have 9
packed
HR
so tight
departments,
that
and
disease
many of them have
spreads like
computer
wildfire.
systems that can't talk to each other.
These
that are
fish never
Or that are
chase prey.
faxing to each other, right?
They never swim
and we
upstream.
also had
They sit in floating cages,
our agency
eating
grew by
pellets
38%
made from things
over
salmon
the
were
past
never
4
meant to
years.
eat.
Right.
Corn,
So these
soy,
reductions just bring it
vegetable
down to
oils,
pre-COVID levels.
poultry byproducts.
And
because they
the
don't eat what
agency,
wild salmon eat,
grew
they don't
over
develop
the
that
last
natural pink
80
color.
years,
Wild
or 70
salmon
years,
get their
and
color from
it
eating
grew in a
krill
way
and
that's
shrimp,
very unwieldy.
which contain a natural
We have
antioxidant
100
called
communication
astaxanthin.
departments. We
It's
have
one of the most
we have
powerful
40 procurement
antioxidants in
departments. We
nature.
have 40 IT
It's what
departments.
makes flamingos pink.
We have 9
It's what
HR
protects
departments,
salmon
and
from
many
the
of them have
intense
computer
oxidative
systems that
stress
can't talk to
of
each other,
swimming
that are
thousands
Or
of
that are
miles
faxing to
upstream
each
to
other,
spawn.
And
But
we also
farm
had
salmon never eat krill.
our agency
They
grew
never
by
eat shrimp.
38%
They eat
over the
industrial
past 4
feed,
years.
and their flesh turns
Well,
gray.
these reductions
Now, here's
just
where the
bring it
fraud
down
comes
to
in.
pre-COVID levels.
The industry knows you won't buy gray
And
fish.
the agency,
Nobody wants to serve
grew
gray
over
salmon
the
at their
last
dinner table.
80 years,
So they add
or 70
synthetic
years, and
astaxanthin to the
it
feed,
grew in a way that's
not
very
the natural
unwieldy.
kind. A
We have
synthetic
100
version,
communication
often
departments.
derived from
We have,
petrochemicals,
we have 40
and they literally
procurement
choose the
departments. We have
color
40
from a
IT
color chart.
departments.
It's called the Salmo
We have
fin.
9 HR departments.
It looks
and
like
many
the
of them have
paint
computer
swatches
systems
you'd
that
find
can't
at a
talk to each
hardware
other, that are
store.
Right, or that are
incompatible.
Salmon
faxing to
farmers
each
pick
other,
the
right?
shade of pink
And
they
then we
think will
also
sell
had
best, usually somewhere
our
between
agency
shade
grew
20
by
and 34,
38%
and they
over the
dose
past
the
4
feed
years.
accordingly.
So
The
these
agencies won't
reductions
tell you
just bring
this,
it down to
but the
pre-COVID
synthetic astaxanthin used in
And
farm salmon
the agency,
is manufactured by the same
grew
petrochemical
over the
companies
last
that make
80
industrial
years
dyes.
or 70 years,
and
it's
it's created
grew
through a
in a way
process
that's very
involving
unwieldy.
petroleum derivatives.
We have
You're
100
eating
communication
fish that was
departments.
artificially
We have,
colored
we
using
have 40
compounds
procurement
synthesized from
departments.
chemical
We have 40
plants.
IT departments.
And the FDA looked
We
at
have
this
9
practice
HR
and
departments,
said it
and
was
many of them have
perfectly
computer
fine.
systems that
This
can't
is the
talk to
exact
each other,
same
that are
regulatory
Or that are
failure we
faxing to
see
each other,
across
right?
the entire
and
food
then we
system.
also had
The incestuous
our
relationship
agency
between
grew
the
by
industries and
38%
the agencies
over the
that are
past 4
supposed
years.
to police them.
So these
The
reductions
FDA
just bring
requires
it
that
down to
farm salmon
pre-COVID
be
levels.
labeled as color added.
And
have you ever seen
the
that label?
agency,
It's buried in fine
grew
print.
over the
Nobody
last
reads it.
80
Nobody
years
knows.
or 70
and that's by
years, and
design.
it
But the
grew in a
dye
way
is
that's
just
very
the beginning.
unwieldy.
Let me tell you what else is
We have 100 communication departments.
Farm
We
salmon
have,
consistently
we have
test
40
positive
procurement
for higher
departments. We have
levels of
40
PCBs
IT
than wild
departments.
salmon.
We have
Polychlorinated
9 HR
biphenyls.
departments, and
These
many
are
of them have
industrial
computer
chemicals
systems
that were
can't
banned
talk
in
to each other.
1979
With other
because they cause
faxing to each
cancer,
other, right?
damage the
And
immune
we
system,
also
and
had
disrupt hormonal function.
our
and
agency
endocrine
grew by
disruptor.
38%.
They
over the
accumulate
past
in
4
fat
years.
tissue.
So
And
these
because
reductions
farm
just
salmon
bring
are
it down to
fattier than
pre-COVID
wild
levels.
salmon, They concentrate
And
these toxins
the
at much higher
agency,
levels.
grew
Studies have
over
shown
the
that
last
farm
80
salmon
years
contains
or
up to
70
10
years, and
times more
it grew in a way
PCBs
that's
than
very
wild-caught
unwieldy.
salmon. 10 times.
We have 100 communication
Dioxins,
departments.
same
We
story.
have,
These are
we
some of
have
the most
40
toxic
procurement
compounds
departments. We have
ever
40 IT
created by
departments.
industrial
We
civilization.
have 9
They
HR
persist in the
departments, and
environment
many
for
of them have computer
decades.
systems that
They
can't
cause
talk to each
cancer,
other, that are
reproductive
that are faxing
problems,
to each other, right?
developmental
and we
issues
also
in
had
children. The World
our
Health
agency grew
Organization
by
has said there is
38%
no safe level
over the
of
past 4
dioxins.
years.
Right.
And yet
These
farm salmon
reductions
is
just
loaded
bring it
with
down
them.
to pre-COVID
We know
levels.
that farm salmon operations around the
the
world
agency
use antibiotics at
grew over
staggering
the
rates.
last
In
80
Chile,
years,
which
or 70
supplies a
years, and
huge
it
portion
grew
of
in
the
a way
farm
that's very
salmon we eat
unwieldy.
in America,
We have 100
antibiotic use in
communication
aquaculture
departments.
is
We
largely
have,
unregulated.
we have 40 procurement
These fish are
departments. We have
swimming
40
in their
IT
own
departments.
waste, packed
We
together
have
so
9 HR
tightly that
departments, and
infections
many of them
are
have computer
inevitable.
systems that can't talk
So they're
to each
dosed
other,
with
that are
antibiotics.
Or that are faxing to
And
each
we're
other.
eating those
and
antibiotics.
we also
We're
had
contributing to the
our
antibiotic
agency
resistance
grew by
crisis that the
38%
CDC says
over
is
the
one of
past
the
4
greatest
years.
threats
Right.
to public health.
So these
Superbugs,
reductions just bring it down
created
to
by our
pre-COVID
food
levels.
system, the omega-3
And
fatty acids
the
that make salmon
agency,
so healthy, they're
grew
dramatically
over
reduced
the
in farm
last
salmon.
80 years.
Wild
or 70
salmon
years,
has an
and
omega-3
it grew
to
in a way that's
omega-6
very
ratio
unwieldy.
of about 8 to 1.
We have 100
That's what we
communication
need.
departments.
That's
We have
anti-inflammatory.
we have 40 procurement
That supports
departments.
brain
We have
health,
40 IT
heart
departments.
health, joint
We
health.
have 9 HR departments,
farm
and
salmon,
many of them have computers
because they're
systems
fed
that can't talk
vegetable
to each
oils
other,
and
that are
corn-based
Right. Or that are
incompatible.
faxing
Their
to each other.
ratio is often
and we
closer
also
to 2 to 1
had
or even worse.
Our
They're
agency
loaded
grew
with
by
omega-6 fatty
38%
acids, the
over the
same
past 4 years.
inflammatory fats that are
So these
driving the chronic
reductions
disease
just bring it
epidemic
down to
in this
pre-COVID
country.
levels.
And let's talk about
And
persistent organic
the agency
flame
grew
retardants,
over the last
pesticides,
80 years
heavy
or 70
metals.
years, and it
These
grew in a
things
way that's very
bioaccumulate
unwieldy.
in the food chain.
We have
and
100
farm salmon is
communication
near the top.
departments. We
Every
have,
study
we
that
have
has
40
compared the
procurement
contaminant
departments. We have
levels
40
in
IT
farmed
departments.
versus wild
We have
salmon
9
has
HR
found the same
departments,
thing.
and many of
Farmed
them
is
have computer
worse,
systems that can't
sometimes
talk to each
dramatically
other, that are
worse.
Right. Or that
incompatible.
are
A
faxing to each other,
2004
right?
study published
and
in
we
the Journal
also
of Science
had
found that farm
our
salmon
agency grew
had
by
significantly
38%
higher
over the past
concentrations
4
of
years.
organic
Right.
chlorine contaminants
So these
in wild
reductions
salmon.
just bring it down.
The
to
researchers
pre-COVID
recommended
levels.
limiting consumption of farm
And
salmon to
the
reduce cancer
agency,
risk. The European
grew
Union has
over
stricter
the last
standards for
80
some of these
years
contaminants.
or 70 years, and
In Europe,
it grew in a way that's
banned
very
certain
unwieldy.
pesticides that we still
We have
allow in
100
American
communication
agriculture.
departments.
They've
We have,
restricted
we
the
have
use
40
of
procurement
antibiotics
departments.
in
We have
food
40
production.
IT departments.
They require
We
clear
have 9
labeling.
HR
The
departments.
European
and many of
standards
them
are
have
not
computer
perfect, but
systems
it's
that
ahead
can't
of where
talk
we
to each
are.
other, that are
Right.
Why
Or
are
that are
American
faxing
families
to each
being
other,
treated
right?
as outcasts?
And we also had
food safety.
our
Why do
agency
European
grew by
children
38%
deserve protection from these
over the past
toxins
4
while
years.
our kids are being used
So
as
these
test
reductions
subjects?
just bring
And
it
here's
down to
what
pre-COVID
really
levels.
makes me angry. We
And
subsidize this
the
system.
agency
American
grew
taxpayers
over the
subsidize
last
the corn
80
and soy that
years
goes into
or 70
fish
years,
feed.
and it grew
We
in a way that's
subsidize
very
the
unwieldy.
destruction of our own health.
We have 100
The commodity
communication
crop system,
departments. We
driven by
have,
government
we have
policy,
40 procurement
produces
departments. We have
cheap
40
corn
IT
sprayed with
departments.
glyphosate,
We have
which is
9
classified
HR
by the World
departments, and
Health
many of them have
Organization
computer
as a
systems that
probable
can't
human
talk to each other,
carcinogen.
that are
Right. Or
incompatible.
that
That
are
corn
faxing
goes into
to each
fish
other,
feed.
right?
That
And we
glyphosate
also
ends up in
had
fish. And we
our
wonder why
agency grew
chronic
by
disease
38%
rates keep climbing.
over the
The
past 4
science
years.
tells us that
So these
glyphosate
reductions
disrupts
just
the
bring
gut
it down to
microbiome.
pre-COVID levels.
It damages the tight junctions
And
in our intestinal
the
lining.
agency
It contributes to leaky
grew
gut,
over the
which is
last
now being
80
linked to
years
autoimmune
or 70
diseases,
years,
allergies,
and
and
it
even
grew in a way that's very
neurological conditions.
unwieldy.
And it's in the food we
We
eat
have 100
every single
communication
day,
departments.
including
We
that
have
supposedly
we have 40
healthy farm
procurement
salmon.
departments. We
Now
have
let me
40
tell you
IT
about the
departments.
alternative.
We have
Because
9
we're not
HR
just here to
departments, and
expose
many of them have
problems.
computer
We're here to
systems that
provide
can't talk to each
solutions.
other, that are
Right. Or that
Real
are
incompatible.
faxing to each other, right?
Not more
and
corporate
we
products
also
marketed
had
with misleading health claims.
Our agency grew
Wild
by
caught
38% over the past 4
Alaskan
years.
sockeye,
So these reductions
Alaskan
just
coho,
bring it down to pre-COVID
king
levels.
salmon from sustainable
And
fisheries.
the agency
This is what salmon is supposed to be.
grew over the
This
last
is the food that
80
built
years
healthy
or 70
civilizations.
years, and it
These
grew in a way
fish
that's very
eat what
unwieldy.
fish are supposed to eat.
We have
They
100
swim in
communication
clean,
departments.
cold waters.
We have,
They develop
we have
that
40
natural
procurement
pink color
departments. We have
because they're
40
actually
IT
eating
departments.
krill and shrimp.
We
The
have 9
astaxanthin
HR
in wild
departments,
salmon
and
is
many
real.
of them have
It's
computer systems
organisms that
available.
can't talk
It
to each
protects
other.
yourselves
They're
Or that are
nature
faxing to
intended.
each other, right?
The
And
omega-3
we also
content in
had
wild salmon is
our
dramatically
agency grew
higher.
by 38%
The contaminant levels
over
are
the past 4
dramatically
years.
lower. There are no
So
antibiotics.
these reductions just
no
bring it down
artificial
to pre-COVID
dyes,
levels.
no petrochemical derivatives, just real
agency
food.
the
kind
grew
our
over the
grandparents
last
ate
80
before
years
the
or 70 years,
industrialization of
and
the food
it
system
grew in a
poisoned
way that's
everything.
very unwieldy.
Look for wild caught
We have 100
Alaskan
communication
salmon.
departments.
Look for the
We
Marine
have,
Stewardship
we have
Council
40 procurement
certification.
departments. We have 40
These
IT
fisheries are
departments.
managed sustainably.
We have 9
The stocks
HR
are healthy.
departments, and many of
The
them have
ecosystem
computer
is
systems that
protected.
can't talk to each
This
other.
is what
They're
regenerative
Without
food
it
production
faxing to
looks
each other,
like.
right?
This is what I would
and
put
we
on my
also
own
had
table. This is what I feed
our
my
agency
family.
grew by 38%
Sockeye salmon
over the
is
past 4
an
years.
incredible choice. It
So
has
these
more
reductions just
astaxanthin
bring it
than
down
any
to
other
pre-COVID
salmon
levels.
species. That deep
And
red color you
the
see is
agency,
real. It's not from a
grew
salmon color
over
chart.
the last
It's from
80
a wild
years
diet.
or 70 years. and
Coho
it
is
grew in a
excellent.
way that's very
King
unwieldy.
salmon, when you
We
can
have
find it
100
from
communication
sustainable sources,
departments.
is
We
extraordinary.
have,
There are
we have
companies
40
now
procurement
producing
departments. We have
canned
40
wild
IT
salmon that
departments.
is affordable and
We have 9
accessible.
HR departments, and
You don't
many
have
of
to
them have
spend a
computer
fortune.
systems that
You
can't
just
talk
have to
each
make the
other, that are
choice.
incomplete.
You
Without
just
it
have to vote
faxing
with
to
your
each other,
wallet.
right?
Every
And
time
we
you
also
buy
had
wild over farmed,
our
you're sending a
agency grew by
message.
38%.
You're supporting
over the
fishermen
past
who
4
do
years.
things the right way.
So these
You're
reductions
rejecting
just bring
the
it down to
industrial
pre-COVID
model that's
levels.
making us sick.
And
I also want to
the
mention companies that are
agency,
doing aquaculture
grew
correctly.
over the last
There are operations
80
now
years,
using
or 70
closed
years,
containment
and
systems,
it grew in a way
fish
that's very
appropriate
unwieldy.
diets, not using
We have 100
antibiotics,
communication
not adding
departments.
synthetic
We
dyes.
have,
This
we
is
have 40
possible.
procurement
This is what
departments. We have 40
innovation
IT
looks like
departments.
when it's directed toward
We
health
have
instead
9
of
HR
profit
departments, and
maximization.
many of them have
But
computer
you have to
systems
look
that
for
can't
it. You
talk
have to
to each
read
other. They're
labels.
Or
You
incompatible.
that
have
are
to ask
faxing to each
questions.
other, right?
And
We
we
have to
also
stop
had
doing science experiments.
our
and start
agency
eating
grew by
food, real
38%
food,
over
the
the
kind that
past 4
doesn't need a
years.
chemistry degree. to
So these
understand the
reductions
ingredient
just
list.
bring it down
the
to
kind
pre-COVID
where
levels.
the ingredient list says
And
one thing.
the agency,
Salmon, I'm working
grew
on this
over
from the
last
regulatory side.
80 years.
We're going to
or 70
require
years,
transparent
and
labeling.
It grew in
We're
a
going
way
to make
that's very
sure that when you
unwieldy.
buy salmon, you know
We have
exactly
100
what you're getting.
communication departments.
We're going to challenge
We
the
have,
cozy
we have
relationship
40
between the
procurement
FDA
departments.
and
We
the
have 40
industry
IT
players who
departments.
profit from consumer
We have 9
confusion.
HR departments.
We're
and
going to
many
hold
of them have
companies
computer
accountable
systems that can't
for
talk
the
to each other.
misleading
They're
marketing
Right, without it
that has
faxing to each
convinced
other, right?
Americans that
And we also
is
had
just as good as the real thing.
Our agency
But
grew
I
by
need your help.
38%.
Chronic
past
disease
4 years.
epidemic will not be solved
So
by
these
government
reductions
alone.
just
It will
bring
be
it down
solved
to
by
pre-COVID
millions of
levels.
individual choices. By families deciding
the
that their health is
agency,
worth more than
grew
convenience.
over the
By
last
consumers
80
demanding
years,
better.
or 70
By
years.
parents
and
who
it's-
refuse
it
to
grew in a
feed
way
their
that's very
children
unwieldy.
dyed grave fish marketed
We have
as a
100
health food.
communication departments.
This is not
we
about
have,
deprivation.
we have
This is
40
about
procurement
liberation.
departments. We have 40 IT
Liberation from a
departments.
food system
We have
designed
9
to make
HR
you sick
departments, and
and
many
then
of them
sell
have
you
computer systems that
pharmaceuticals
can't
to
talk
manage
to
the
each other. They're
symptoms.
Right, or
incompatible.
that are
Liberation
faxing to
from
each
the
other, right?
metabolic
And-
crisis
and we
that is
also
stealing
had
years from American lives.
Our agency grew by
Liberation from the
38%
lies we were
over
told
the
for
past 4 years.
decades by industries
So these
that view us as
reductions
profit
just bring it
centers,
down to
not
pre-COVID
people.
levels.
Let me share something else the
And
industry doesn't
the
like to know.
agency,
The environmental
grew
destruction
over the
caused by
last
salmon
80
farming
years
is
or
catastrophic.
70 years, and
These
it
open
grew
net
in a way
farms
that's
will
very
release massive
unwieldy.
amounts of waste
We have
directly
100
into the
communication
ocean.
departments.
Fish,
We
feces,
have, we
uneaten
have 40
feed,
procurement
antibiotics,
departments, 40 IT
pesticides,
departments.
all of it flowing
We
into
have
our
9
coastal
HR
waters.
departments, and
In
many
Norway,
of them have computer
in
systems
Scotland,
that can't
in
talk to each
Chile,
other, that are
in
Right, or
Canada.
that are faxing to each
We're
other,
seeing
right?
the same pattern.
and we also
Wild
had
salmon populations collapsing.
our
near
agency
farm
grew by
salmon operations.
38% over
Sea
the
lice
past
from
4
the
years.
farms infesting wild
So these
juvenile
reductions
salmon.
just bring it down
Entire
to pre-COVID levels.
runs of wild fish being
And
wiped out
the
because we
agency,
decided to factory farm the
grew
ocean.
over
This
the
isn't
last
just about your
80
health.
years
It's
or
about the
70
health
years,
of our
and
planet.
it grew in a
It's
way
about
that's
whether
very
our
unwieldy.
grandchildren will have wild salmon.
We have
to eat
100
at all.
communication
The
departments.
industrial
We
model
have,
is destroying
we
the
have
very
40
ecosystems
procurement
that
departments.
produce
We have
real
40
food.
IT departments.
And our
We
regulatory
have 9
agencies
HR
stand by and
departments, and
watch
many of them have
because the
computer
corporations
systems
have
that can't talk
captured
to
the
each other, that
process.
are
Right, or that are
incompatible.
faxing
In
to
Scotland,
each other, right?
rivers that
And
once
we also
teemed
had
with wild Atlantic salmon
Our
are
agency
now
grew
nearly
by
empty.
38%.
The farms have spread disease. The chemicals
these
have polluted the
reductions
water,
just bring it
and
down
the
to
industry
pre-COVID
blames
levels.
climate change while ignoring
And
the floating
the
feedlots
agency,
choking the coastline.
grew
The same thing
over
is
the
happening in
last
British
80
Columbia.
years or
Wild
70
Pacific
years, and
salmon
it grew in a
populations
way
are in
that's very
crisis.
unwieldy.
Scientists are
We
screaming
have 100
warnings,
communication
and the
departments.
industry
We
keeps
We have,
expanding.
we have 40
We know that
procurement
farm
departments, we have
salmon
40 IT
escape from
departments.
these net pens
We have
by the
9
millions.
HR
They
departments, and many
interbreed
of them
with
have
wild
computer systems that
populations.
can't talk to each other.
They spread
They're
disease.
incapable.
Or that are
They
faxing to
compete
each
for
other, right?
resources.
And we
They are
also had
biologically inferior fish,
our
bred
agency
for
grew by
rapid growth in
38%
captivity,
over the past 4
diluting
years.
the genetic heritage of
So these
wild
reductions
stocks that have
just
evolved
bring it
over
down to
thousands of
pre-COVID
years
levels.
to survive in specific rivers
And
and streams.
the
This is
agency
an ecological disaster
grew
unfolding in
over the
real time.
last
And the
80
feed
years,
itself
or
is
70
a
years,
problem
and
beyond the
it grew in a way
glyphosate
that's
and
very
corn.
unwieldy.
Industrial
We have
salmon
100
farming
communication
requires
departments.
massive amounts
We
of
have,
wild-caught
we
fish
have
to
40
produce the
procurement
fish meal and
departments. We have
fish
40
oil that
IT
goes into the
departments.
pellets. It takes roughly 3 pounds of wild
many
fish
of them have
to
computers
produce
systems
1
that can't
pound of
talk to
farm
each other,
salmon.
that are
Right,
incompatible.
or that are
Completing
faxing to
forage
each other,
fish
right?
populations.
And we also had
anchovies.
our
sardines,
agency grew by
menhaden.
38%
These are
over
the
the past 4
foundation
years.
of marine food webs.
So these reductions
And we're
just
grinding
bring
them
it
up
down
to feed
pre-COVID
factory
levels.
fish so corporations can
And
sell you
the
dyed gray
agency,
salmon at a premium.
grew
This is
over
the
the
definition
last
of
80
unsustainable.
years,
This
or
is
70 years,
biological
and it grew in a way
incompatibility
that's
with the
very
systems
unwieldy.
that support life on
We
this
have 100 communication
And the FDA,
departments. We
NOAA,
have,
the
we have 40
EPA,
procurement
they've all looked the
departments.
other
We have 40
way
IT
because the
departments.
lobbyists wrote the
We have
regulations.
9 HR
I want you to
departments, and
think
many
about
of them have computer
what we've
systems that
lost.
can't talk to
Before
each
the
other, that are
1970s,
Or that are
incompatible.
faxing to each other.
before
right?
industrial
And we
aquaculture
also
took over,
had
salmon was
our
a
agency grew
seasonal
by
food.
38%
It was special.
over the
It
past
was
4
real.
years.
Right.
Communities
So these
along the Pacific
reductions
coast
just bring
built
it
their
down to
entire
pre-COVID
cultures
levels.
around the salmon runs.
And
indigenous
the
peoples
agency
managed these fisheries
grew
sustainably
over
for
the
10,000
last
years.
80 years,
And in a few
or 70
decades,
years, and it's
corporate
it grew in a
greed
way
has
that's very
pushed wild
unwieldy.
salmon to the
We
brink
have
of
100
extinction in many
communication
areas.
departments.
We can reverse this.
We have
We
40
can support the
procurement
fishermen who are
departments. We
doing
have
it
40
right.
IT departments.
We can demand that our
We have 9
regulatory
HR
agencies
departments,
actually
and many of them
regulate.
have computer
We
systems
can
that can't
choose
talk to
wild
each
over
other, that are
farming
Right, or
every
that are
single
faxing
time.
to each other, right?
And we can
and we
rebuild
also
the food
had
system that nourished
our agency
generations
grew by
before the chronic
38%
diseases that
over the past
stole
4
our
years.
health.
Right.
We are going to make
So these
America healthy
reductions
again.
just bring it down to
But it
pre-COVID
starts with
levels.
knowledge. It starts with
And
understanding that
the
what you're
agency,
eating matters. It
grew
starts with
over the
looking at that
last
salmon in the
80
grocery
years,
store and
or
asking
70
the
years,
question
and
I don't want you to
grew in a
ask.
way that's
Is this
very
right?
unwieldy.
Because if it's farmed,
We have 100
the answer is
communication
no.
departments.
It's a
We
product
have,
of industrial
we have 40
agriculture,
procurement
dyed to
departments.
look
We have
like
40
food,
IT departments.
packed with contaminants,
We have 9
and
HR
sold to
departments,
you
and
at a
many of them
premium
have computer
because
systems
somebody
that can't
figured
talk
out
to
that
each
pink
other,
sells
that are
better than
Or that are
gray.
faxing to each other.
Demand better.
And
Choose
we also
wild.
had
Protect your family.
our agency
Protect
grew
our
by
oceans.
38%
Protect the future.
over the
This
past
is
4
the
years.
movement.
Right.
This is how we take
So these
back our
reductions
health.
just bring
And
it
I
down to
promise you,
pre-COVID
we are
levels.
just getting started.